Drivers, start your engines!
So all 40 drivers rolling out on the racetrack for their one pace lap. Now, a couple of notes about Texas. Pretty much the same as most mile-and-a-half tracks we go to. Bottom lane is key. If you can get your car to the bottom, you can pull away from drivers. However, it's almost self-cleaning in terms of how many passes you can make on drivers within a lap. As long as you're on the bottom, you can get around many cars. But also keep this note in mind. Typically here at Texas, there's usually a random caution towards the end of the race during green flag pit stops, and it ends up causing a big problem with scoring in the field. So don't be shocked if we get one of those situations here in this race. But the pace car's in pit road, and it's time to boogity go racing. Well, Galligan had the lead and now has lost it after he slowed down a little bit on the straightaway while running on the bottom. That's another note about this track, is if you're on the bottom on this front stretch and you end up slowing down, it can really cost you big time. And that is definitely the case with Galligan. Let's watch Collard. He did it a little bit, but not nearly as bad as what Galligan did, and they're racing side by side for third now. Teammates out of Richard Petty Motorsports. Meanwhile, back up here at the front, Dylan Poteet has taken the lead back, but now he's got Paul Minnick to his inside as the 9 car is trying to figure out a way around the 31. I don't know, it's almost like as if you're 3 wide on the front stretch and you're on the very bottom. That's where it can really cost you. And here comes Joshua Collard. Actually, we got 3 dodges. I had a hiccup there for a second. 3 dodges up here now into the top 3. And now Collard's in the middle of an Evernham Motorsports sandwich with Minnick up high. Fitzwater was on the bottom, but again, like I pointed out, 3 wide and you're on the very bottom on that straightaway, and you end up having to slow down. It can cost you a little bit. As Collard was the one who led that lap, but just barely over Minnick. And they are still side by side, and Fitzwater trying to figure out a way around both of those guys. And then you got Poteet, who's still up here, and then you got a couple of Retro Racing Enterprise teammates, Charles Sanford and Jessica Sheldon up here, trying to work their way into the picture. And then you got Collard's teammate, Galligan, who's also up here. So you got a lot of teammates for different teams up here into the top 10, which is really interesting. Right now it's like the one loner out of those guys is Poteet, because his teammate James McLeod, I have no idea where he's running. Although I think I saw him back there in the middle of a 3 wide situation. But meanwhile, Zachary Fitzwater now has the race lead. And then behind him, a battle goes on for second between Sanford, Galligan, and maybe Sheldon, as Sheldon's going to make it 3 wide for the position. And Sanford nearly made contact into the driver's side of Collard, but managed to stay off of him. Although Sanford slowed down a little bit right there on the straightaway, and now Collard trying to capitalize by running the outside. Either way, this is what Zachary Fitzwater is really liking right now, because he's starting to pull away from everyone behind him. As I messed up right there. When do I never mess up? But nonetheless, back up here at around the second position, it's still a battle between Collard and Sanford. Collard hanging on strong on the outside, but Sheldon trying to give her teammate Sanford a bit of momentum to get him cleared, and he did finally clear Collard right there. And whoa, there was a little bit of contact right there between Sean Galligan and Paul Minnick. As meanwhile, we're starting to see some new contenders up here in the top 10. There's last week's winner, Emmanuel Hartnett, who's having a good run going here in the early going of this race. And then you got his teammate, Jake Baskinger, trying to work his way up here. And then Poteet, he's continuing to free fall, just little by little, though. And it looks like basically how this is all working, it's similar to California in a way. Outside lane prevails off of turn 4. Bottom lane prevails off of turn 2. And what in the world happened to Galligan? As he just slowed down big time. And now that helps for Poteet to get a run to try and clear the 44. And he does, and so too does Benjamin Miles, who's following Poteet. Interesting strategy between those two, as meanwhile we still got 33 laps to go in this race. Still anybody's game here, up here at the front of the field. And meanwhile, that lead that Zachary Fitzwater had has been cut in half, and here comes Collard, who is still battling Charles Sanford. But now, Emmanuel Hartnett, sort of similar to what happened last week at Oswego, although he did slow down there just a little bit. Hartnett's been working his way up through the field one by one. Could he have a fast enough car to challenge for the lead? Meanwhile, Paul Minnick's trying to make a comeback, and he's up here to 5th now. So you got 2 out of the 3 Evernham Motorsports drivers running up here in the top 5. Diego Yepes, I don't know where he'd be currently running, but he did start dead last, I believe. And I don't see him still. Meanwhile, Jessica Sheldon's starting to lose positions as she got forced up high, and Benjamin Miles goes by, and now you got Jake Baskinger and Preston Plord up here trying to take that spot away. So too is Carson Gum, as there you see the 19, who we haven't talked about yet. He's trying to make it 3 wide, but again, that bottom lane on the front stretch ended up slowing down, and Sheldon's going to prevail and keep the 8th spot at the 8th spot for the time being. And then meanwhile, we got a couple of teammates, Gum and Baskinger, fighting for the what looks like the 9th position right there. And then you got Chris Dollarton, Texas native. He's now entered into the picture as he's in 11th right now, trying to work his way up to the top 10. Could he be a winner here at his home track? Back up here at the front, Zachary Fitzwater still leading, but Collard is trying to reel him in. And then meanwhile, behind that, you got a battle on for 3rd between Emmanuel Hartnett and Charles Sanford. And then back here, we got a big-time battle going on for 5th. Poteet trying to use the outside to clear Benjamin Miles, and he does clear him. Meanwhile, Fitzwater still leading by just a small margin over Collard. But we're actually, well, maybe thought Collard was going to be able to make a run to the inside, but didn't quite carry enough speed. But I was going to say, let's actually do a full field rundown and see how things are shaping up right now. So right now, Zachary Fitzwater is your race leader. 2nd is Joshua Collard. 3rd is Emmanuel Hartnett. 4th, Charles Sanford. 5th, Dylan Poteet. 6th is Benjamin Miles. 7th, Paul Minnick. 8th, Carson Gum. 9th, Jessica Sheldon. 10th, Jake Baskinger. 11th, Chris Dollarton. 12th, James Qualls. 13th, Colin Phillips. 14th, Kyle Matthews. 15th, Preston Plord. 16th, Sean Galligan. 17th, Patrick Smith. 18th, Ethan Hoffman. 19th, is Jonathan Zorline. 20th is Seth Cole. 21st is James Shelley. 22nd, Tim Fiegel. 23rd, Cody Lamas. 24th, Dylan Thoreau. 25th is Jay Jefferson. 26th is James McLeod. 27th, DJ Curtis. 28th, Dylan Jacobs. 29th, Dylan Young. 30th, Matt McIntyre. 31st is Trent Dunham. 32nd is Ryan Butcher. 33rd is Diego Yepes. 34th is Anthony McCurry. 35th, Alex Drayton. And then currently the bottom 5 right now are Dougie Shears, Jake Rogers, Cullen Francis, Rafael Leduc, and Joshua Sekuli. Man, Joshua Sekuli has not had a good start to this season to defend his championship. Oh, some contact right there between Shears and Rogers. Somehow, some way, they keep it together. Meanwhile, back up at the front, it is still Zachary Fitzwater leading the way. Hardnett is now up to 2nd as Collard has fallen back to 4th. Meanwhile, 3 wide back here for what looks like the 7th spot. Jessica Sheldon made it that way and managed to get by Benjamin Miles, but trying to work on Paul Minnick as Baskinger behind her ended up slowing down a little bit right there on the straightaway as we're now at the halfway point, 22 laps to go here in the NRA 500, and you gotta wonder, when will these drivers end up having to come into pit road to get tires and fuel? I'm expecting at pretty much any moment now, and once they pit, they should be good to go for the rest of the race. As I continue to scour the field and see how things are progressing. But right now, Fitzwater still hanging on strong. Ever since he had taken the lead, no one's been able to challenge him. But perhaps when we get to pit stops, we could see some strategies take place. And depending on how fast they pit and when they pit could be the deciding factor of who wins this race. Although you got a couple guys starting to reel in Fitzwater, Hardnett is definitely reeling him in. Sanford's trying to reel him in, as right now Hardnett trying to run a lower line than what Fitzwater is running, so he can maybe get some more speed under that in that engine. And he's just little by little closing in. He just needs a little bit of help from someone behind him to help him get a bit of a draft boost in order to try and make a move happen. And you can definitely tell he's gaining on the 91 right there in 1 and 2 by running a lower line than the 91. But here in 3 and 4, Fitzwater seems to somehow get an advantage and pull away just slightly. Meanwhile, we may have a battle for 4th that's about to ensue. Joshua Collard has that spot, but Carson Gum, who's another Texas native, he wants to get that spot for himself. But back up here at the front, Fitzwater looks like he's continuing to pull away from the 20. As I see battle going on back here for 39th. Although Sekuli and Yepes, I see Poteet went in. There's a few drivers that have elected to come into pit road early. So that is definitely the sign that pit stops are about to happen. But don't be surprised if we get that phantom caution. That always ends up messing up the scoring. Chris Dollarton is going to stay out an extra lap, and it looks like he will get that bonus point. And a couple others stayed out with him. Colin Phillips, James Shelley, Tim Fiegel, Cody Lamas, Dylan Jacobs, Trent Dunham, Matt McIntyre, Anthony McCurry, Rafael Leduc, Alex Drayton, and Cullen Francis all stay out. Poteet, the first one to come out of pit road of the first 3 drivers that came in. But let's keep an eye on Fitzwater here. as he came in as the leader. It looks like he's going to go 4 tires and fuel. Although Hartnett, he got a faster pit stop, and he's actually going to beat out Fitzwater out of the pits. That is a big game-changing moment as Fitzwater lost the battle off pit road. Oh, and we got an incident that took place between 3 cars. Shelley, Smith, and Lamas. It must have been a miscommunication. As my phone goes off, I'll be back. Apologize for that. Don't you just hate it when you get phone calls in the middle of recording? I do. But anyways, back to business. So, after those pit stops, and yeah, we did have one incident take place on pit road, and I'm surprised we haven't gotten that phantom caution that we usually get around this point of the race here at Texas. But Patrick Smith has taken his car over the wall and he's out. Shelley's somewhere on track damage, so too is Lamas. Because I'm going to assume there was a big miscommunication with those drivers and trying to get into their pit stalls, and they end up running over each other. Or it might have been a stack-up effect. Regardless, there was some miscommunication on pit road. And as a result, 3 cars damaged, one of them out of the race entirely. But anyways, Emmanuel Hartnett has the race lead, and he's trying to go for 2 in a row, although you got a few other contenders who are actually reeling in the 20 very fast. I mean, just look at the speed difference. His teammate, Hartnett's teammate, Carson Gum, he's up here trying to get to the lead. As 2 laps ago, Hartnett was over a second ahead of Carson, and now Carson's right there, and now he's got to run to the inside for the lead. Carson Gum trying to get a win, his first win of the season, and also to get it at his home track in Texas. Side by side for second as Hartnett's going to continue to lose spots right now, as Sanford is going to take over that position. Then you got Zachary Fitzwater, the dominant car of the day. He's back here in 4th, and then you got Poteet in 5th. Battle on for the 6th position between Paul Minnick and Chris Dollarton. Joshua Collard back here, so too is Sheldon, and then Jonathan Zorline, who's now into the top 10. Great run going for that 88 car. And now there's a huge gap back here to Colin Phillips. As I continue to scour the field and see what's going on. And where is James Shelley? Oh, there he is. He's still got his hood up, and I guess he's kind of up to speed. I'm kind of surprised considering that buckle he had was a lot bigger. I guess his pit crew was did manage to get the hood down and try and keep his car in one piece. But when we cross the line here in just a moment, it will be 6 laps to go, and Carson Gum is trying to do all he can to hold off Charles Sanford as well as teammate Emmanuel Hartnett, among others, to try and get his first win of the season and to get it in his home track at Texas. Although Charles Sanford, he's hungry to get a win for himself as well, considering he comes into this race 34th in points and has yet to score a top 5 or a top 10. Right now he's in a good position to make that happen, but also in a position to potentially win, as it's now less than 5 laps to go in the NRA 500. And now you got a couple other drivers starting to enter into the fray, into the top 5 potentially. Chris Dollarton, although he's kind of slowed down big time right there. I don't know what the deal was there. Perhaps he got a little bit loose and had to catch the car. But he was side by side with Paul Minnick for the 6th position. Meanwhile, almost bumper to bumper between the top 2, between Gum and Sanford. But right now, Carson is still trying to do all he can to hold off the 03. Although Sanford's got to run to the inside, but is he going to end up having to slow down? No, he's still trying to keep his car underneath the 19. But the 19's just got a strong race car right now and ends up clearing Sanford off the outside. And that's actually helping to bring Emmanuel Hartnett perhaps back up here and to make it a 3-car battle for potentially the win. Two laps to go at Texas. And right now, Carson Gum doing an excellent job at mirror driving right now and keeping those guys behind him at bay. Meanwhile, Hartnett has reeled in Charles Sanford for the 2nd spot. Can he make it work? Oh, he got into him in the quarter panel just slightly, but it wasn't enough to get the 03 out of the way as the white flag is out, and I think that little bit of contact from the 20 might have sealed the deal for his teammate to get the win. See a close battle going on track right now. It's pretty much single file, although you got this big battle with a bunch of cars in the back. But we're getting ready to come off of turn 4 for the final time. Checkered flag waving. Carson Gum wins the NRA 500 at his home track at Texas. This has got to be perhaps the biggest win so far in Carson Gum's career, to win finally at his home track in this series at Texas. What a job. Managed to get more speed out of that car after the pit stops and somehow managed to make it all happen and get that W. But let's look at the rest of the results. Charles Sanford finally gets a top 5 and a top 10 in one race. Comes through with a 2nd place finish. Emmanuel Hartnett tried to get his 2nd straight win, but still gets a great run in the 3rd spot. Zachary Fitzwater, the dominant car of the day, finishes in 4th. And then the pole sitter, Dylan Poteet, who was about top 10 pretty much all night, ends up finishing in 5th. Chris Dollarton, who came out of nowhere in the end to get the 6th position. Paul Minnick with a solid performance in 7th. Jonathan Zorline, who we didn't really talk about at all, finished in 8th. Joshua Collard with a solid run in 9th. And then rounding out the top 10, Benjamin Miles. And then there's the rest of your top 20. Then your top 30. And then finally the top 40 and the bottom 5 being Cullen Francis, DJ Curtis, Tim Fiegel, Jake Rogers, and then only one car out of the race being Patrick Smith after an incident on pit road. But thank you guys for watching the NRA 500 at Texas. We got 3 races left before we get to the All-Star race at Armory Digital. But next up, it's back to play racing as we head to Talladega for the Aaron's 499. But until then, here are your results, rookie points and regular points heading into Talladega. And this is Levi McIntyre signing off.